The resolution trap. It's a massive problem. You see all these headsets banging out big numbers in terms of resolution, and they look amazing, and they are amazing. I have some of them, but they all come with a huge downside, and that's where many sim racers get trapped. It can either completely ruin your VR experience or force you into extremely expensive PC upgrades. The headset strapped to my rig right now isn't the sharpest on paper, but I think it's the smartest. Pimax supplied this crystal light for this video, but have no control over the content. So the downside of high resolution headsets is performance. Now, when I say high resolution headsets, I'm talking about the Pimax Super, Super OLED, or Ultrawide, and anything really above that. These are amazing headsets in their own right, but the baggage that comes with them in terms of what it takes to run them is quite substantial, even with things like dynamic foveated rendering and upscaling. Then when you look at the bottom end of the scale for popular sim racing VR headsets, you might be looking at something like the PSVR 2 or the Meta Quest 3. These are way easier to run, and to be fair, the experience is pretty good. The issue you'll get with these though is distant track objects like braking boards and markers, because when you're sim racing, you're 200 meters ahead of yourself, and headsets like these can make that a little bit difficult. Now, I'm not hating on the PSVR 2 or the Meta Quest. I really love both of those headsets, but those distant objects and picking out braking markers are a little bit of a concern. Then we look at the Pimax Crystal Light. It sits in a clear sweet spot. First thing is the resolution. The Crystal Light has enough for me to clock those distant objects on the track, and being able to easily use my braking markers combined with the depth perception you get in VR, I think it's an advantage you kind of lose out with some of those cheaper, lower resolution headsets. These two things combined make the Crystal Light a superb sim racing headset. But that's not the only thing that makes this a great sim racing headset, and for that we need to take a look at the Pimax Crystal Super's max refresh rate, which is 90 Hz. The Crystal Light will do 120. So not only does the lower resolution of the Crystal Light make that frame rate more achievable, but the extra 30 frames a second can be the difference for people that suffer with motion sickness. So on one hand, the resolution is a big enough jump from the likes of a Meta Quest that really makes a clarity difference. And then on the other hand, you don't need an absolute beast of a PC to run it. But resolution isn't the most important number here. The number that captures that is PPD, which is pixels per degree. That's how many pixels are packed into each degree of what you're looking at. The Crystal Light does 35 PPD, and that's my whole case. 35 PPD is the sweet spot for high-end sim racing. And for context, I run the PSVR 2 almost daily, which is about 18 PPD, and the Meta Quest 3, which sits around 25. And then the Pimax Super OLED and Ultrawide, which are way up over 50. And even then, I still think the Crystal Light is the smart play. It just lands in that Goldilocks zone of resolution, PPD, frame rate, and price, and we'll get to the price in a minute. But to be clear, the Pimax Crystal Light is not an entry-level VR headset. You still need a powerful PC to run it. I don't fully agree with what Pimax say on their website for PC specs, especially when it comes to sim racing. But what you don't need with a Crystal Light is a 4090 or 5090 GPU, and either one of those is the budget killer in a PC build. Anything from a 4080 up with a reasonable CPU like a 7800X3D will give you a good experience without you having to sacrifice too much in terms of graphics quality. Now, if I'm making the case for this headset, I owe you the one reason to hesitate. The hesitation is quality control. You've seen the stories, the faulty lenses, the RMAs, the refunds. You can't wave that sort of thing off, but I don't think Pimax ships bad units to customers and golden ones to reviewers on purpose. I just think their QC isn't tight enough yet. It's more of a lottery than it should be, which is a shame because the product underneath is genuinely very good. So if you pick one of these up, check your lenses carefully the day it lands and use the return window if you need to. But on the flip side, it does look like an area that's improving for Pimax. If you own a Crystal Light, did you get a good unit or a bad one? Drop it below in the comments, because the more of us who share, the clearer the picture becomes for everyone else still deciding. So I did mention the price earlier, and the price dictates the value. And the Pimax Crystal Light comes in at $899 USD. Now, for the experience, the clarity, the specs, and I can say the software too, because the software is now very good. All these things combined, I'm not going to say it's a steal because it's still $899, but everything combined, it's certainly good value. If you play AMS2, iRacing, or any of the other well-supported sim racing titles, you'll have a great experience, provided you have a medium to high-end PC.